It is beautiful, isn't it? It's like, it's almost like, I mean, also like that in a
I like the badge as well. It's like.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Pete. You all right?
Hi, Rich. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Bill.
In a second. Right. Am I talking funny? No.
No,
You all right?
no funnier than usual.
It's okay, Pete. I can take it, mate. Sometimes I have double echo sometimes, and I'm
Oh,
accused
yeah.
of having two channels on, whatever that means.
I don't know how you do that.
I don't do anything, Pat. And I've got a new computer now, so it should be all right. Right, let me go and do something.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Han.
Hello. Hi. Oh, we're going to do medieval Cardiff today.
Oh, right.
So,
Go on, then. Start then. You start, Dan. Go on.
A medieval.
I just wondered, well, it reminds me of Newport, because like when we were kids, like we were told that, all about Killian and everything, and Newport was just is a very modern town, a very young town and everything, but they didn't really tell us about the medieval side of it. But there was, just like Cardiff, there were priories and abbeys and, castle.
Cool.
And, I didn't know about them until I got to be an adult, really. Nobody was really,
What you taught in school, isn't it? Can you remember what you were taught in school? I was taught some Welsh history. I remember that.
No, I had no Welsh history whatsoever. It was a Catholic school, and all I was taught was the lives of the saints, St. David. What was St. David's school? St. Patrick.
Oh yeah.
But we were taught
St. George doesn't exist.
we were taught medieval history, however, never focused on Cardiff, and it was always Normans onwards, because as people like to
well, I'm thinking
going on in the early medieval period.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of primary school, because when you went to secondary school, it was all, like you say, Normans, Normans onwards, but then Napoleon, this big leap, to Napoleon. And
just an interest, anyone, would anyone be interested in an evening of me and Carl talking about our ramblings? So
God, no.
So there would be a mixture of history, obviously, which we always talk about, but I think we'll add our quirky, weird side to it, really. So if anyone's interested in that, me and Carl will sort of plan that and have a rambling together.
Like a one night thing, not 4 weeks of it.
Oh no, just an evening of our ramblings.
An evening with Carl and Jess.
It would be a good idea, actually, just a social evening, get together with everyone,
Yeah, that's what we were thinking.
It's convenient, as long as it's
Social
available.
evening is, more like it, yes.
Yeah, well, that's good. Just a reminder, Bill and Peter, you have to pay for this evening as well for the next 8 lessons. Carl told me to remind you.
Did he? Oh, he's always reminding. Yeah, don't worry about it.
It's okay. I thought I'd remind you. How's everyone this week?
Fine.
Do you know, I was really sick last week.
Oh, Anne, why?
I went Friday night. I was really, really sick, and you know, all Saturday, Sunday.
Oh,
I'm
bless
only
you.
just getting over it now. So I hope I didn't pick anything up, but it could have been after the injection I had in my eye. You know, I just don't know. So, but it was. I mean, you know, used hand gel and everything at the pub, but you just
Yeah,
don't know if you go out to places like hospitals and that, you don't know what you're gonna.
Yeah, when you're mixing with
Really.
people as well, you're going to end up with, it's like freshers flu, isn't it? You're going to get a cold and just mixing with people
Yeah.
again. Because I know quite a few people that I know have got tonsillitis, which is lovely. They can stay away from me.
Oh,
But I had my second injection for the COVID vaccine and, hit me for 6. Probably was milking it more than what I should have, but I was dying, in all honesty. But I'm glad I've got over it now. We're all good. And then my dog got ill. He had a swollen mouth.
Oh, I won't be able to come tomorrow because I've got to see my gastroenterologist online, and I'm
all right, Anne, that's fine.
Sorry about that.
Is that right?
Okay.
And
Sorry.
I'm not going to be able to come either. The WI is having their first meeting in a year and a half, and they meet on Thursday afternoon at 1:15. So we're going to be in Coity Castle.
Oh, wow.
If it rains, we'll be there with umbrellas, with our tea and cake.
Well, you both will be missed.
Yeah, soft drink and cake. That's it.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll see you next week then, guys.
Yes.
I'm hoping someone can get Dorothy to come, you know, because or there might be another person who might come, you know.
Yeah, we'll talk about this at the end, Anne.
Okay.
We'll get straight into it.
All right.
The Cardiff is where I'm from. It's where I live, and I want to look at. Oh, the American lady's turned up again. Cardiff is where I live, and it's surprising how many people in Cardiff, including myself, until I started learning about medieval history in uni and in school, how little we knew about it. And there is certain parts of Cardiff that are shown off, but it seems like a lot of it is very secretive, and it seems like it's only exclusively for history lovers. So I'll be delving into certain things such as defensive walls. We will have a little look at Cardiff Castle because you cannot talk about Cardiff without the castle. I'll be looking at pottery. I'll even be looking at a monastic settlement that was said to be near where I live, and even the church near there, and just sort of giving a light of the little gems that I have found myself. One book that I think has been a great help, I've already started annotating it myself as well, is Gwynfor Evans' book, Land of My Fathers, is 2,000 years of history of Wales. And he gives us a good discussion, even in terms of a rebellion in Llandovery, which me and Carl didn't really know much about until quite recently. So there's a lot of little gems in there that can open your eyes to Welsh history, and just things that we don't really know, or for some reason just don't get told much of. So it's definitely a book that I recommend, and I have got a lot of information from this book. I think by the time I finished with it, it's going to be full of my awful handwriting. But we'll get into it. I'll put the share screen on now. So Anne must be telepathic, or she looked online, but I had a little rant earlier on the Archaeology Cymru page about how little is known about Cardiff, and I think I might do in a couple of weeks' time another one of Cardiff, and just get into more nitty-gritty stuff with it. But I thought we'll have a basic sort of look at Cardiff and give you my argument of why we should talk about it more. Like I said, the reason why I've chosen Cardiff is because it's where I'm from, and it's a place that I love, obviously, because it's where I'm from. But I really didn't know as much as I thought I did about Cardiff. And one thing that's brought my attention to things like the pottery is my master's degree, and my dissertation is really brought me closer to knowing more about Wales and Cardiff especially as well, because I'll be looking at South Wales and the trade there, and looking at how we had our trade routes with Ireland and how that connected to Scotland, and even the connection with England in some sort of way with trade. But I'll also be arguing that Wales and Cardiff had good trade links with people not from just Ireland and England, but we'll get into that in another lecture, because I want to do a fully blown lecture on how Wales and South Wales was in a good position and really used the trade links from the Romans as well and pushed it forward into the medieval period. And I think the one thing that annoys me is that Cardiff's advertised for its nightclubs, its pubs, its universities, castle, the shopping. We all know these things about Cardiff, and it's the one thing I think that is advertised the most for Cardiff. And it seems like that is mostly the focus and everything else is ignored. And I think we need to take more pride in Cardiff as a city and its history, just like other places in Wales. In Britain, you have places like London that show off its history. You've got places like York, you've got places, so many places around us that show off its history with great pride. And I feel like that's something that Cardiff doesn't really do. All they have is Cardiff Castle and St Fagans that is advertised the most. And it's really disappointing, really, because it's very shocking when you've got people from Cardiff who couldn't really tell you diddly squat about what gone on here before we got to the Victorian period. And there's a lot of evidence of rich trade that came because of the River Taff. That is an important feature to Cardiff, and it affected our culture and our identity. And I feel like Cardiff was also a central point for a lot of things that have gone on in terms of conflict and trying to resist against the Normans. And I think Cardiff can tell us a lot more about other countries as well in terms of trade, and how well connected it is, and is seen as an important area for religion, trade, the wealthy, and those who lived nearby. This was a thriving city, and to me, this is an important area because the location of it is allowing connection with many civilization and people, and it's brought a lot of information. And it's quite interesting because I don't know what it is about Cardiff, but you know from me and Carl's lectures that we talk about how Norman monasteries or structures seem to be protected more than the early medieval period, but in Cardiff it seems like there's no care at all. Whitefriars, for example, was knocked down for a car park. I just think that's ludicrous, and we don't really have much information on the excavation done by Lord Marquis of Bute there as well. And it just seems like it's something that people are happy to forget about. We talk about Cardiff yesterday, but it doesn't seem to go about past the 1900s, and it can be very frustrating because you're stuck in this modern history and the interpretation of that. But I want to push us back a little bit. A lot of it will be part of the later medieval period, but I want to sort of bring in some evidence to suggest early medieval as well. And I think it's obviously hard because this is a city that's expanding and people are more interested in companies and working. It's a very busy place. And I think because people are more focused on the nightlife and their work and shopping, the archaeology is forgotten almost. And it makes me wonder how much is actually underneath Cardiff without us actually knowing. And the pottery that I'll show you is best pottery I think I've seen in the Cardiff area, because it is jugs that are intact from the medieval period with beautiful detail, and they've just been found underneath buildings and just logged and forgotten about. It's not shown off. And one of the pieces of pottery that I'll show, I don't know why this has happened, but it was found in Cardiff. It was clearly showing trade to Cardiff, but I'm finding books about this jug that they're saying it was found in England, but it wasn't. It never was, and it's actually in the Museum of Wales's collection online saying that it was found in Cardiff. So it really does confuse me a little bit. There's something iffy going on with Cardiff. Maybe not many people are caring, but I do think it's at the hands of politicians as well in Cardiff. I do think they need to focus more on the history and the archaeology. Especially with people feeling like their identity of being Welsh is taken from us in terms of the Welsh knot and other things, and just what things are going like in Wales today anyway. But I think it would also help if more preservation was of Welsh history in terms of, I don't know if any of you have seen, but there's a petition going around at the moment in terms of Cardiff, that I can't remember what building, but it's one of the tall buildings. Is you first thing that you see when you come to Cardiff, they're putting a British flag there. And the whole purpose of that is to try and get the union together, but it's very counterproductive because it's got people very angry. They want a Welsh flag there, not a British flag. So that's caused a lot of disagreement. And I think that the one way to make people feel like maybe they have a place in Britain, maybe they feel respected, is if we respected their history. And I don't think I've spoken to a lot of people online and in person about this, and they seem to be very interested in Cardiff history and what it can tell us, but they know nothing. And it's really shocking, really, because it just seems like it's forgotten, and to me it's very important. So we'll be looking at this map. Don't know if any of you know this map. Is John Speed's map of 1610. Now I know this isn't medieval, but the areas that I've circled here are important because of this being something that was stood in the medieval period. And the Blackfriars is the first circle. So if I get a little pen now, so I can just show you what I'm on about as I go along. Get that one. So Blackfriars obviously is by here. That is something that people walk past every day in Cardiff, is in Butte Park, or what I used to call it, Cooper's Field. And I used to go there when I was younger and just mess about with my friends on a Saturday. And I always saw the outlines of something on the floor, and I was interested and I used to look at it. But again, it was just left there and not much focus has been put on it. So that's an area that I have spoken about before, but it is important. And Lord Marquess of Bute actually excavated there and brought a lot of information to light from that as well before it was lost forever. Obviously, we have the Norman Keep here, which is seen to be a symbol of Cardiff. When I was a child, I had a silver necklace given to me, and on it was an actual 3D silver little Norman Keep that I used to keep on my necklace, and I still have it with me to this day. So that's the symbol of Cardiff, and even down to the walls here of Cardiff Castle being put here as well. There's a lot of discussion in terms of that. And even just down to the defensive walls that we see on the side, it is there. And quite a few people know that if you go into St David's Centre, for example, they do mark out parts of the defensive walls in the floor. So when you go into St David's Centre, there's like these really weird reddish lines in the floor, and they go off into the shops and you can't follow them anymore. They're part of the wall. But again, people think it's decoration, and I used to until I looked into it. This church here that I'm circling is something that is really fascinating me, because it's where my favourite pub is in Cardiff, Prince of Wales, and the Wetherspoons, which used to be a theatre, but there's more to the history of that as well, which you can see from the side, and we'll talk more deeply into it. And then you have St John's here, St John's Baptist Church in Cardiff as well, and there's a lot of information here. and just the River Taff, which I've just put a big circle on. The only reason why I put it on this area is because they're finding a lot of pottery here, and to me this suggests important trade. This river was really important to livelihood, and it's gone now. It goes through Westcott Street, and obviously you can drive at Westcott Street now. And they've changed the course of the river itself. But I know Cardiff is trying to restore in Churchill Way the little canals that had going on there, which quite a few people are not very happy about. But I think it's a nice little place to restore history and sort of bring us back. I think it would be really nice. But this map here, even though it's not medieval, is showing us evidence of structures that were about in the medieval period, and is a good starting point. And this is something that is shown off quite a lot when you Google about Cardiff's past. And it's a great map to start off with. So thank you, John Speed, for your great accuracy in this map and showing us what it would have looked like.
Excuse me, I wondered, the St Mary's Church down here, what is that in Canton?
I apologise. I realised I thought that was St Mary's Church there. It is not, Anne. This is St Mary's Church. That is where the Wetherspoons pub is today. So we'll talk more into it.
Okay.
Thank you, Anne. It's because I literally was staring at it the other day and I saw that little chap and I was like, But yes, you are correct.
So that's St Mary. There was a church called St Mary's, was it?
Yeah, there was a church called St Mary's, and the reason why they had St John the Baptist Church there was to relieve that church because it was a lot smaller and to have.
Yeah, it's a nice church though. That I've been there. It's still there. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's still there. It's been it's had a lot of repairs to it, and you can even see the graveyard, which because you walk through it and there's numbers on the floor as you go to the market.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is beautiful, especially if you're able to go to the bell tower and ring the bell. They do allow people to do that quite occasionally, not often. I'm not sure with COVID at the moment, but. Yeah, it's a lovely place, and I even like the nativity scene at Christmas there. It always makes it look magical.
I used to work in Howells, so of course I was backing onto all those streets.
Yeah.
Go around. It was,
yeah,
nice
you see a lot.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah, no, especially even the market, and I used to be a women's prison as well, which fascinated me as a child, because you can still see the numbers on each cell, which are now stalls. So this is my favourite pub. This is a pub that has seen me pass out on the floor many times during my early days of uni. The stories that I have of this pub, it just brings a smile to my face because I've acted like an idiot here many times. But it's a nice place and it's set up like a museum, not a museum, a theatre inside. Obviously, it used to be a theatre. I think my friend said something. Now, I don't think this is true. I don't know where he's got this information from. It's from his uncle, but he said that back in his day, they used to sometimes show dirty films. So
it was well known for it.
Yeah.
I went in there wearing a dirty raincoat.
Yeah.
It's full of scandal, I think. And I did say to my friend's uncle, I was like, "Oh, how do you know?" And he was like, "Might have gone there."
Jumping out of Cardiff in the 50s is a place you would frequent.
Yeah. So I'm glad it's been confirmed by you lot, and I'm not talking rubbish. But that's amazing, and even the inside of it looks beautiful. And you can still see parts of the theatre that's there, and it's honestly gorgeous in there now. And I just like going there. Sometimes I go there for food and a few drinks. But this used to be a medieval church as well. And one thing I think that annoys me is that a lot of people know Prince of Wales of my age, and they just think of the drinking and messy nights out, and the side of it is that you can no longer access at the moment, which is quite frustrating. I was there the other day, and I wanted to try and take a photo myself of it, but I couldn't. So I just got one offline, because there's construction at the moment down the side, because I think that's where they're putting the new bus shelters there, the new bus station. So at the moment, you can't get there, but you used to be able to walk past it.
Yeah.
And
That church was destroyed during the tsunami, and that's why they put the outline of it back up there, because it was destroyed during the tsunami of 1606.
yes, well done, Peter. Thank you so much. I love it, the fact that someone here knew about this church, because every time I mention it to people, it's possibly just because of people that I'm around. It's fascinating, Peter, that you know a lot about it, yet there's people that live on his doorstep and don't know anything about it. And I like the fact that they did sort of incorporate the outline, because you can see the outline here. What it would look like. This was one of the smaller churches in Cardiff. It was St Mary's, and quite little is written about it actually online. You have to dig deep, which is what I was doing. I was going through Google Scholar, scouring through, trying to find information.
And that's why it's called St Mary Street.
Yeah, that's the, in a way, that's the only thing that sort of is left off that.
We do lack churches in Cardiff, you know.
Oh, you got plenty of bloody churches.
Yeah, and it's quite a few of them where as you go further where I live.
Don't need any more churches.
Pardon, Anne?
We missed that one. It's, you know, because then we would have known why it was called St Mary's Street.
Yeah, and it's just little things like that. I think
lots of other places have still got their churches, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, this one had to be killed by the tsunami.
It was this whole issue. It was the River Taff, because the meander of it was slowly moving, and like Pete said, in 1601, this sort of caused a disrepair and just this going away to ruins. And I do like the fact that they've tried to incorporate it into the brickwork of this lovely pub, but unfortunately it's something that's not known. And I think one thing that was annoying me, because as I was walking home last Thursday from teaching Lantwit in Bridgend, I was just taking a walk and I was having a look at the blue plaques that are on the wall, and the writing's gone from them. There's no blue plaque here to talk about this, and it just seems like no one cares. There's a lot of focus on the diversity of Wales, and I think when you look at diversity of Wales, you can bring in Wales's history to portray that as well. And it allows people to know everything around them and why it's called St Mary Street, because people just see it as just a place for nightclubs, because across the road then you've got loads of pubs and you've got loads of gentlemen's clubs, etc. And it's just very frustrating, I think, especially for someone like me who loves history and only found about this as they were getting older. And there's obviously a museum in Cardiff, but it doesn't focus on this type of history. It looks at the world natural history and paintings, which is interesting. And I always used to go there all the time, especially if it was raining and I was out with my friends in Coopersfield, like I used to say, and we'd go in there and we'd walk about, and I always used to take things in. But my sort of history is history like this, and I just love the fact that you can still see the outline of it, because it's a memory, but it seems like it's a memory that's only unlocked by people who really love the history around them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? That lower image there now, is it still like that now?
It is still like that now.
Or is that fabric part of the church?
Well, that's what I felt like it was, but then because it was damaged, I think maybe they were trying to recreate that in some sort of way to try and it's almost like a hint of what was there, because you can still see aspects of a church, like with the arches and
round window
areas that you'd have a figure standing. Like I said, a lot of it was damaged, and it wouldn't make sense with the outline of the church on the side, because it's more brought forward. So I think it's a little bit of a recreation and an inspiration of what it once was. But the inside of it is more of a devotion to the theatre that was there as well. which is quite interesting. But even just looking at the front of it, it does look very church-like, and when you look at it, it does make sense. But it's the side of it that's very interesting, and you can really see how small this church would have been. Even though it doesn't look small on the map, it was smaller than St John's, and that's why St John's was important, because it gave a little bit of relief to this church, because it was just at this point so many people going. And that's what really confuses me, really, because there's two churches, there's two monastic settlements. However, there seems to be no settlements directly near this. And to me, maybe there was some sort of settlement nearby. We just haven't found it yet. And I think maybe that should be more focused when they're planning and they're digging up things and sort of changing the way Cardiff looks. I think there needs to be something put in place where someone's actually actively keeping an eye on what's going on and having a look at if there's anything going on, because I do think some things are possibly being missed. One thing that's quite common in Cardiff is that they find things underneath the buildings, and it just seems like, oh, we found it underneath a building, end of that, and no one seems to be making these connections and links, especially with trade, which is what I'm interested in. I'm using the pottery to make these connections and links. So this is the outline of the church. It's my favourite thing of Cardiff to always point out. I think my friends sort of roll their eyes now because I go, I used to be a church, and they're like, oh, shut up, please shut up. And they're begging me, especially near my house. The first thing I always used to say was, do you know that house by there? You used to be a farm that used to be here. And that now it's become a joke because it gets brought up before I even get the chance now. But it's only because I just want people to know about where they live and just take pride in it. That's all we need to do. I think this is a step in the right direction for putting the outline of it. It just needs a blue plaque and a big one so people focus.
It is very important for people in Wales to have their, especially the Anglo-Welsh identity, and it's because it can make them proud, of their place where they are,
And I think it highlights how religiously significant Cardiff was. To have two churches and two monastic settlements is a really big deal, because you don't really see that many sort of very close proximity. You can in some areas, but like that, it just seems like there's something going on here more than what we know. My slide wants to move to the next one. So St John's Church and this lovely one here. Yeah, it's gorgeous. And even if I will, once I find out, once things calm down a little bit more, I'll if you guys are ever in Cardiff, I'll sort of give you the times that you can go up to the bell tower, because they do teach you how to do them exactly and what one is for what. It is really interesting to go in there and see that. But even at Christmas time, it seems really magical and gorgeous. And obviously you've got the market then on the right hand side of where that church is, and you can sit outside and have some food, and even just look at all the numbers on the floor, and it just blows my mind. Is what Carl says, when people are buried, their names should have been put where their graves were, not a number. It really gets rid of, it's really impersonal. It dehumanizes them in a way, in my eyes, just giving a number to someone. You only need numbers in my eyes when is things where you don't need to know what that individual was, in terms of tests, etc. But they're not doing tests. These are people that were buried there and was remembered by their families, and I think their name should be there to be remembered for everyone else. And there's a YouTube page, YouTube channel. Haven't got many followers. But the guy's honestly done a lot of discussion in terms of Cardiff and how important it is. And he does focus on this church in great detail past the medieval period. It's called Cryptic Cardiff. He looks at lots of little areas around Cardiff, some that I think we all would know. But it's quite interesting anyway. But it was, this is a church that this is to be thought the only other medieval building other than Cardiff here, and it did go through some reconstruction in the Victorian period and the 1800s, the 18th century as well, because they were adding to it and they needed to repair it. that's only natural, but it was built in 1180, and like I said, it was to ease the St Mary's Church, which was founded by by Benedictine monks from Tewkesbury Abbey, and this church here is originally constructed of a Jurassic stone, blue lias, with layers of fossilized shells, which was sourced from Aberfour. And these walls were dressed with freestone, limestone sourced from nearby. And they think that it was sourced by Dundry. And it was sacked during the rebellion of Owain Glyndwr in 1404, and it was rebuilt. There was still parts of it left, but the majority had to be rebuilt in the second half of the 15th century. And it has 10 bells in there. Like I said, if you go there, you do get the joys of sort of messing around with the bells and looking at them in their fine glory. But I think this is very significant because this is got a connection with Cardiff, and it's in the centre. People walk past it every day and just think, oh, it's a church. But this is a very important church. The fact that we've got Owain Glyndwr sort of having his little rebellion kicking off here as well. And like I said, like Peter said, Bristol Channel floods it destroyed St Mary's. So this parish then became the main service from 1620 as well. So this is a church that have seen a lot of history and a lot of different events and conflicts going on, which the other church didn't. And I think the reason why we don't know much about St Mary's is possibly because some of the information with it is withered away. But I just would love to see more history being focused on, more plaques. A plaque on this church would be perfect as well. A plaque on the prison nearby would be perfect as well. Just can we please just point out each area of Cardiff explicitly and not assume that people know, because it is very frustrating. It seems like everything is hidden in plain sight in Cardiff. Like I said, the amount of times Cardiff City Centre is something that I know off the back of my hand, because I used to go there as a child shopping with my mum, and my mum used to point things out. And even when I got to college, I was buying a castle key for Cardiff Castle. And it just seems like when you talk about Cardiff's history, they just go Cardiff Castle, and it's left at that. And it's very frustrating. This church has seen a lot, and it's been very important from bringing people from St Mary's to this parish here. And it went on into the 1800s, and it eventually went to this Baptist church. And I just wanted to sort of show you this little gem here that I absolutely love. I would love to actually access it, but unfortunately it's behind shops now, and to get to it you would probably have to be a delivery driver that's sort of dropping off the goods, or being a worker there. It just seems like something, again, hidden from Cardiff, because it's just a wall. That's what they think. But this wall is amazing. It's a medieval wall. It shows the defences of the area as well. And to me, it just highlights further how important this area of Cardiff is, because we've got so many little things you can go and find. Even Warrenby Street, for example. I've spoken about this with Anne and Bill and Bridgend, is that you go down one of the sides and you do see one of the streets that used to be a slum, that it didn't have working water there, and now is offices that get chained up, but is grade 1 listed, and it basically hasn't been touched, other than the fact that they've obviously put plumbing in there now, and rebuilt a little part of it. But Cardiff Shire Hall, yeah.
Regarding the wall, isn't it in the Churchill Way, there's a glass which looks down onto remains of the wall, I believe, isn't there?
Churchill Way. I could have a look on Churchill Way, but from what I know of Churchill Way, there doesn't seem to be. It's all.
You can't see the wall itself, but there's a glass panel where you can actually look into, and it shows you down onto the remains of the wall.
Oh, Oh, I might have a look at that because
Yeah, please
I've
do.
never
Yeah.
heard of that. So it'd
There
be
you go.
quite interesting. Because obviously I know it is where you get the bus. Because you've got all the houses and the streets, and obviously a lot of the nightlife that was there is going now.
George Churchill Way, it's that area.
Yeah, it is definitely around that area. What I'll do for you, Pete, I'll go as part of my homework. I'll go and have a gander, and when I finish work on Thursday tomorrow, and I'll take some photos. Because I think that would be something lovely to actually show you for next week. Just the fact that I found it. There is markings where they had the wall in certain parts of town. I know Greyfriars Road has got a plaque nearby there, sort of marking out where one of the old walls were. But this wall is just there, just left there, and people just walk past it every day. But this is a medieval wall, and Cardiff Shire Hall was built inside the castle's walls in the 15th century. And it was in use of the town's administrative centre until the 17th century. But I think the medieval town spread from the Cardiff South Gate, and the High Street lines up with the Roman, rather than the medieval South Gate, suggesting that it dates from an earlier period. But this is the town wall. It's the best preserved section of Cardiff's town walls, and you cannot access it or even have a look. And I'm very much a tactile person with history. I like to touch the walls and close my eyes and just imagine what sort of scenes would have been around it. I do make up quite a few of the scenes, but it gives me an image. It acts like a portal for me to just jump back into time. And they believe that because of this, a medieval town was probably developed in two stages. The first stage being relatively small enclosure marked out by Working Street and Womby Street, which Womby Street actually, which is quite interesting, is thought to be also derived from Norse language, which is sort of further highlighting to people that the Vikings did leave a mark in Cardiff. And it makes sense because it would have been very close to where the Taff would have naturally had flowed. And then the second part of the town was a development to let Cardiff expand, and it was defended by the east by a bank and a ditch, and eventually a stone gate, and to the west the town was protected by the meandering River Taff. And the River Taff is more than just protection, which is something that Museum of Wales don't go delve in deeper, is that this brought a lot of trade and livelihood for people, and it makes sense that people would have resided nearby just so they could trade, and they would have had a lot of trade being part of people's lives and part of Cardiff as well. Which brings me to this beautiful piece here. And this highlights further this connection through the Bristol Channel in terms of trade. And one thing I like about Cardiff is that they're finding pottery here that's well preserved, really well intact, very detailed, and it's hand green pottery just because you can see from the way it looks. Not much is written about it. This is something, if you type in on Google hand green pottery Cardiff, the first link is from Museum of Wales, and they do show you a lot of images from here. This was found in Wharton Street, Cardiff, and it was found in the 19th century. It's known as a chance find, and not much is sort of discussed about it really, but it was found when they were rebuilding an office here. And they just found it underneath the floor, and they actually have this online to have a look at the collections online. But I believe you can find this in the St Fagans Life Is gallery under tableware, and that's a good gallery if you want to go to as well. And this to me it's been messaged to me by Carl, but it does bring a connection with Cosmeston. I don't know if any of you have read any of Alice Forward's work from Cardiff University, but she basically marked out areas where you could find pottery from different areas in the world, and Cosmeston was a very big focus for her because they found a lot of hand green pottery, which is quite interesting because was that hand green pottery in Cosmeston something that they traded by the River Taff in Cardiff and then taken down to where Cosmeston is, or did they get it from nearby the coast near where Cosmeston is? We don't know, and you can go down a lot of theories and possibilities, but the fact that we're seeing this really well intact pottery here in Cardiff, it just shows that we're having a connection, and the Bristol Channel is very significant with us for having trade with England. And to me, having something that's so well refined and so detailed, it highlights to me that this was a rich economy that Cardiff had, that they're importing these beautiful jugs, and they really sort of show off. And St Baggins' gallery that you can go in, so as you go into the entrance, instead of walking straight past the inside area, you can go in and it's like a little museum. And I went there for the first time a couple of months ago. I say a couple of months ago, it was last year now, my gosh. And the history and archaeology there is amazing because it goes from prehistoric right up until quite modern history, and it really sort of acts as like a perfect time capsule of the development of Wales throughout time. And I think it would have made good old Gwynfor Evans quite happy because it lines up with his book quite well. And he even talks about Cardiff being a very important place in terms of how Cardiff was important in terms of power. This was a place where power was fought for. You have a lot of battles around Cardiff, but this was argued to be an important area in terms of the Normans, because the Normans took this area to start creeping into Cardiff and taking their power further. But this is showing this link with Bristol, and I think is vital for our trade links. So that's part of the well, this is one of the artifacts that I've used for my dissertation, because to me it's showing that Wales is having a monopoly here in terms of trade as well, and because they've got such great links in terms of rivers and where they're just placed as well. And it just blows my mind because everyone talks about the trade link of going to Dublin and Wexford and then going to Bristol, but no one actually sort of focuses on Wales when you look online. So I think it would make sense that they were coming down that way, and I think Wales really took advantage of this. So much so that we're seeing pieces like this, and it's really well preserved. It's amazing, and I just love the detailing. It's just men just sort of looks like they're holding hands in a circle going around. And hand green pottery is a great focus. It's very distinctive as well.
Where would it? I mean, it looks like natives, you know, but it's not, is it? I mean,
no, this would have been possibly the end of the early medieval period to the late medieval period. This pottery was found, and it's been very
made in Bristol. Did you say?
Yeah, it's near Bristol, Ham Green.
Oh, Ham Green. Oh.
Yeah, so it was found near the hospital in Ham Green, and they found the kiln there. And since then, it's been very helpful in being very distinctive in terms of pottery that's being found. But Cosmeston had quite a lot of pottery. The archaeologist Alice Forward actually focused on quite a lot, and her work is free and available online. I can't remember what it's called, but if you just type in Alice Forward Cosmeston, you'll come up with her PhD dissertation, which is absolutely amazing and really has started the foundations of my research. But we get to this jug here, which is even more beautiful and decorative and really, really fancy. Again, to me, is showing this rich connection with Wales. I think you wouldn't have this fine pottery from other places if Wales didn't have a good, strong economy, and Wales and Cardiff itself clearly had good trade links and had things to trade for these amazing pieces of pottery. And they've compared this with some of the pottery that they found in Kidwelly as well. Several regions of France exported pottery to Britain in the Middle Ages, And what's most notable is northern France with Normandy. But most French pottery found in Wales came from Saintonge area, southwest France. And this has been distinctive pottery for my area of focus as well. And it highlights further that Wales was trading with other areas other than just England and Ireland. We're having connections with the rest of Europe as well. And this would have begun, this type of pottery in this area of France would have begun in the early 13th century and lasted about 500 years. And at the start of this period, the English ruled the neighbouring Gascony, and many of the vessels that have been found in Wales probably made their way to Britain through ports of La Rochelle and a part of mixed cargoes as well. So wine being the most important commodity with France at the time. And pottery from this area was made from fine clay that was well suited to throwing of light, thin walled shapes, such as those seen here. And the clay, it also had a low iron content, which meant that when it was fired, it produced a vessel which was white or buff fabric. And like I said, we connect the first example of this type of pottery found in Kidwelly Castle in Carmarthenshire during the excavations of 1930s. And it appeared to be thrown away with several plainer vessels, and it's decorated with this vine scroll motif typical of the jugs from this area. And it was thought to be, this one was thought to probably be produced between 1275 and 1320. And it's just so elegant how decorated this is. It's shown a lot of great skill of the potters here. And it's 25 centimeters tall, and it places its walls at only 2.4 millimeters thick as well, so at 0.1 inches. And this sort of showed how pottery from France is making its way to Cardiff, and I think this is possibly just as people were trading further, they were moving further past one area of Britain and going to the other area. I had one person argue, well, maybe because Tintagel was a very diverse port, there's sort of a lot of people, maybe we were getting it from Tintagel, but I think it would possibly make more sense that people trading in Tintagel probably tried to go further and try and trade more, because this allowed more connections and allowed them to have more trade and be beneficial for them. So I do think that we shouldn't really dismiss Wales, because I think having that view that all this pottery from outside of Britain would have come from England to Wales, it just seems a little bit bizarre to me. I do think Wales would have had his place in some sort of way, because we have a lot of connections as well. And you see a lot of this type of pottery as well in east of Ireland as well. So to me, this is showing connections where they're going to Ireland, and Wales is on the way. Why would you ignore that area? It just seems bizarre. And this was found in 1893, and it is found in a Cardiff High Street. They don't really go into detail, but it's got birds and masks and lots of vines on it, and they're common features of these jugs. This is their distinctive things to look out for. And when archaeologists look at pottery, they look at the banding, they look at the way the clay looks, the way the clay has been made, and all these show you the distinctive features that would come. And one thing that's distinctive that you see with Kidwelly is the spout as well. That's a very distinctive feature, and even the shape. And to me, this just shows that these pots were greatly valued to the fact that it's been well preserved, and these were sort of great examples of the craftsmanship that illustrates the links of Wales and the wider European world during the medieval period. So then, like I said, we've always got to focus on Cardiff Castle because it is part of Cardiff, and I think everyone here would know the little parts of the wall that are very different. And one thing that's quite interesting is when you go into Cardiff Castle, if you go on the other side of this wall, you see it in this fine beauty. It doesn't look that great from the outside, but from the inside, it's really spectacular. And it highlights really this argument that archaeologists have that Roman structures were reused in some sort of way, and this was reused as it was built upon in the medieval period. And the Normans saw the need to rebuild on this area, and they would have they thought that putting any more new stonework would have cost a lot of money, manpower. So it was probably wiser for them to reuse what they could and build on top of what already existed. And this is an argument that we have with a lot of Roman and early medieval history as well, is that why would things be left? Even in terms of bathing, for example, in the medieval period, everyone seemed to think that everyone stunk, but humans like to smell nice. And these warm springs that would have been used for Roman baths, etc., were still being used in the medieval period. It's just slowly phased out due to religious beliefs. And I think that would be quite an interesting discussion as well, looking at the archaeology of that and even looking at the discussions of medieval bathing, because it is quite interesting and it sort of busts some myths that we have. But back onto this. I think it just shows that Roman structures were very important, and Owain Glyndwr also had this little more of a sort of conflict here where he was damaging the medieval castle walls here, than he was showing resistance against the Norman conquest. Something that Gwynfor Evans really notes upon here. Even talks about how Owain Glyndwr saw the strength of England, and he said that he really rebelled against it because it's something that the Welsh people really didn't want, and they wanted to have their own identity being reinstated and protected as well, which is something that we keep arguing in nowadays. But Gwynfor Evans really shows how Wales really wasn't as compliant as what we're told in terms of joining the Normans, and even later on in terms of the Union Act of Wales as well. Really like how Gwynfor Evans has really portrayed this. But he talks briefly about Cardiff Castle and what happened with Owain Glyndwr and how this was used as an area to fight back as well.
Yeah, Jess.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Could you go back to that previous slide?
You go.
I'm confused.
Go on.
Because what you see on the bottom is original Roman, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's above it, I thought, was built by the Marquess of Bute.
It was.
Okay,
there was. What I thought I'd just show this picture. It doesn't actually show much medieval. I was just sort of showing how this was important.
You notice, if I may say, it's a bit confusing, your note, because what you meant was the Normans used the stone from the Roman wall for the original castle inside, not what we're looking at there.
Oh.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
stuff, all modern stuff on top. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Some historians have argued themselves that they believe that part of the Roman wall was left up, maybe as just a further little bit of a defence. But like I said, it's more when you go inside and go down, because the level outside is much higher than what it is below when you go inside. So they do believe that maybe this was sort of in a way preserved, and you can see aspects of it trying to be preserved, but it really wasn't that great. And I think that's why they moved forward inwards. But the Norman
you can see a lot more of the Roman wall from inside.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that this would have been important to sort of try and sort of keep, but I don't think it was something that they really focused on, because the keep that we have inside, which I'll go on to, was actually originally wooden. And then they later put stone work there to protect it. And we'll get into the keep now, but this tower here, something that I knew about quite recently, but didn't know years and years and years ago. This is at Beauchamp's Tower, and it's 15th century, and it was to protect the castle's west gate. And there's openings at the top of the tower which allowed stones or burning objects to be dropped on attackers as well, which is has an unusual spire that was added in the 19th century as well. So Marquis of Bute really tried to incorporate this in his buildings of Cardiff as well. But a lot of the Roman remains are hidden beneath what has been built there now, and this part of the castle is thought to date, like I said, from the 15th century. It's just the castle on the inside was from the 11th century, and this was begun by William the Conqueror in terms of his return from St David's in Pembrokeshire in 1081. And it's supported by an inscription on a coin that was found in the castle grounds nearby this tower, which suggests that William had established a mint at the castle as well. And Cardiff was originally, like I said, Cardiff Castle, the keep as well, was built in wood, which we will have a look into, because this is a castle that dates from the 11th century, and it was built in wood. But by the 12th century, Robert Consul, Duke of Gloucestershire, rebuilt it in stone, and at this time the castle's west and south walls were raised, building upon the ruins of the Roman fort, because this was seen to be as a way of holding power and expanding out. This was important to them, and it's thought that inside this keep would have been a kitchen, possibly stables. That you do see a toilet in there as well. But one thing that I find interesting about the toilet, and again, is my interest with walls, my obsession with walls, is that I have a look at the graffiti that's by the toilet. Now, it's not medieval, but it just shows how people from different time periods have experienced and come to this area and have left their mark. There's even Roman numerals there that spell out a date as well, which is quite interesting. And it's been left there that you can just sort of see. And I used to laugh all the time as a child at the toilet, but I like seeing an example of a good old medieval toilet. And as you climb up those steps, if I can get a pen, you can even see here just a little well as well, which would have connected with the water nearby. This is a very high Moat and Bailey keep. Like I said, this was originally wooden. It would not have been very stable for any sort of defence if it was all wooden, and so this was described as a shell protecting everything inside by having stone, and I think that was possibly the best move to go for if they wanted to protect it further. And the castle, when they come to the castle, the last remains of the Roman fort was built upon, and they had this wooden Moat and Bailey castle put there, and it was on the top of a large hill, which is the moat, and at the bottom of the moat was at the Bailey, where this would have been defence. This would have been much harder to try and attack, because you've got to get up this tall little hill, and that the water there is quite interesting. I read something quite recently that they've done excavations in the water nearby, and they had found some medieval and Roman remains, but it was never published for me to actually easily access. But in 1423, the castle was owned by Richard de Beauchamp, who built Warwick Castle, and he built a new accommodation and a tower, which we saw in the last, if I can get the pen off so we can show you, which you can see. Oh, no, don't do this to me. Which you can see in that image there. And it's just like little aspects that have just been forgotten, because when you go to Cardiff Castle, they do have reference to it, but it's not explicit, and people are more focused with the Moat and Bailey Castle. And again, I think Cardiff Castle should have more signposts out as well. I know you can have the headset, but I never used to go for that. I used to just wander around and just take things in for myself. And then I get to something that's around the corner from where I live. I say around the corner, it's about 5 minutes away. is St Edmund's Church, which has got a lot of history, and where you're looking at now from the left of it at the top side of the cemetery, they believe that there was evidence of a 6th century monastic settlement here, thought to be evidence of early Christianity. And a lot of discussion is about this, and again, something that people in the area don't really know, and they have started, they've got a new housing estate there now, and I don't know whether they even focused on finding anything, keeping out for anything really, which is a shame. But this was a monastic settlement in the 6th century on Arquilio, they call it Llanedin, but is known as Clonprennine now. And the settlement is likely to continue after the Norman conquest. The reason why it had gone is due to the dissolution of the monasteries then, as we get to the 1500s. But this church has been quite interesting for a lot of people because there's been no medieval burials found there. And they do believe that this is a church that would have been repaired and added to throughout time. And you do see, when you look at the church, the different entrances that have been blocked up on the other side. And they do have evidence that this was something from the Normans, this church here. So they had the monastic settlement, but they built their own church nearby. And it would have been very small and nothing of much significance because, again, they haven't found a settlement nearby here. In terms of what we know in terms of the archaeology and history, it seems a bit out of the way. But this has been added to throughout time, and people have discussed the tower as something as important in terms of the medieval period. And when you do go there, you do see a lot of different types of architecture. Some of it is refined and some of it isn't. The right-hand side of the church doesn't seem that refined. No, it does seem quite refined, but the other side of the church is not refined. And this is thought to be built by St Edmund, the monastic settlement in the 6th century. And from what I know, there's just reference on Arquilio of where it is, but it doesn't really go in further as to if there was any excavations done nearby. And this church has been important for people in the area of where I live, but again, no one really understands the historical significance of it. And it seems like there's a lot of discussion about it, and there's a lot of reference as to what it's thought to be, but no one actually talks in further as to the archaeology, what they have found, because they haven't found much of the archaeology that points further to a monastic settlement. Is just records that they have. And nearby, around the corner, there's St Tylo's High School. And St Tylo's High School on the grounds is said to be a church. And that's something that's been has not been excavated, and something that I think they should do, because it is a mound where it is pinpointed to. So I would like to see if there was more, because this doesn't seem to be any foundations found to that monastic settlement, but you can see from the earthworks that something was there. So it's something that's not very known. And then you get to Llandaff. I rang Carl about this and had a little bit of a rant, because it's got a lot of discussion. People seem to think that this is Victorian, but a lot of people have been arguing what I originally thought when I saw it is this is in a hidden cemetery in Llandaff. It's overgrown, so that's why it's hidden, because not many people go to it, because it seems very inaccessible. But this yew tree it's really old, and to me, it highlights early Christianity and the worship that they would have had there. Something me and Carl have talked about, that this would have been a meeting place to have this open worship together. And you can imagine what this tree would have witnessed throughout time in terms of the history and even the beginnings of Christianity itself. Trees like this are shrouded in a lot of legends and mystery, but is over time, the meaning of it is gone, and we will never know. But it's near a cemetery, it's near Llandaff Cathedral, and to me it just highlights that this is where the early Christianity would have started from, in Llandaff. And I think more of Cardiff's history, like I keep arguing, needs to be shown off with pride. We need pride in this. Not even people in Cardiff, like I said, could point out the little historical gems that are in the city centre and beyond. I think more needs to be done by the politicians, historians and archaeologists, mostly the politicians in Cardiff, to protect the history, show it off with pride, put plaques up if you can, give more artefacts to the museums, because the artefact of the jug from France, if you Google it, is in the Museum of Wales collection. However, there's a book written about French pottery in England. It wasn't found in England, so there seems to be a lot of confusion. It seems like something that is phased out when it comes to Cardiff. People don't want to bring recognition to that. Cardiff is more about being urban and modern, and I don't think that's the way we should go, really. I think more people need to focus on how much of a dream this area is for medieval historians and archaeologists. And to me, it's been a great shame that it's forgotten about, and nightclubs and bars have become the main focus, and shopping. I think we need to be more proud of Cardiff history as well as history of Wales. And I think Cardiff is an area that has been really neglected in terms of the history in the name of urban development and planning and building houses. And I think more needs to be done, even if they did need to build more, maybe sort of making it known, just plaques, this is where we found this here. I think it would really make people more proud of Cardiff further, if they knew about the history and the archaeology of it. So I'll ask people questions now. Peter, is there anything that you would like to ask and add? I love the fact that you knew about St Mary's and the flood. That really put a smile to my face.
And they mentioned it there, and they mentioned about the outline being put on the back of the theatre.
Yeah, it seemed to be a big whack for that church, and it seems like since then it's just sort of withered away in history. You really got to dig deep for it, and I like the fact that you knew about that flood, because I thought it was just something that I stumbled across in terms of that book, but it's not. More people know about it, and I love that. It really brought a smile to my face. So thank you, Peter, for being the highlight of my week. Thank you.
I hope you can find that glass panel with a bit of the wall in it, because I'm sure I've seen it.
Yeah, I want to, when that construction is gone from there, because they've put walls there at the moment, gates, so you can't get past. I would like to get a bit closer and just have a look at it more up close and just see further, because I always stand there and I just think, oh gosh, can you imagine what had gone on here? It's amazing. So thank you, Peter.
Okay.
Anne, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just said Peter's English, but because I think you know, I was thinking that the reason why it's been lost, I suppose, is because of the, you know, Anglo-Welsh problem, you know, and maybe it's, you know, there's been a lot of pressure on English-speaking people in Wales, you know, to sort of forget about our Englishness, and you know, I think that's a shame, because if you do, you forget about all these, you know, the Normans and but you know, whatever we were probably, you know, we're Welsh.
You're Celtic.
We're from, you know, local places, and you know, I just think, yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. You've shed more light on it, you know, and I'd love to see more.
Yeah, definitely. What I think, one thing that I think people, in terms of when we go into politics now, that they're scared about bringing this more to attention, is I think the worry that it might exclude our diversity in Cardiff. However, I think it highlights our diversity, really, the fact that we're having connections with people because of the River Taff. And look at it that way and show that how we can tell other cultures and other people about their history and their trade and how we affected their identity as much as they affected ours.
Yeah, I think that's you've got to have a firm, you've got to have a firm ego before you can give it up. I mean, we were all a bit sort of wishy-washy in Wales, I think, because most of us are English speaking, and we don't really, we haven't really taken on board Welshness until sort of recently, really, in the last sort of 50 years or maybe even less.
I think the problem with Welshness is that the way it's been almost eradicated out. The Welsh language, I think the part of the issue of that dying out was the Welsh Not, for example, children being punished for speaking Welsh in school. Just little aspects of that. And I think it's only now that we're starting to reclaim it. And I think people are worried in terms of politics that this might go down a far right nationalistic ideology, but I disagree with that, because you can flip it on to showing how diverse Wales was and how important it is in terms of European history and the world.
I agree there.
Yeah, no, thank you, Anne. Bill?
I think promoting the history of Cardiff is something of a lost cause because of the many politicians or Senate members I've heard talking about Cardiff and the debates on First Minister's Questions time. It's always about the development of Cardiff and inward investment, what we can do, to expand the prosperity of the city. And there's no talk about promoting heritage, and maybe there should be a heritage minister. Really, we've got an environment minister, so we should have something like that, don't we? So we're going in the wrong direction, we really are. And it's not only at national level; it's at local level as well. We're just losing out somewhere. They push all the time for economic development all the time. That's very important, of course. But and this hasn't changed for years and years. It really hasn't. So. I'm not hopeful, so it's only so amateurs like ourselves can keep pushing and trying to blow the trumpet for our local and national history and heritage as much as we can, But it's but we're there anyway. You mentioned Wormby Street, of course. B or by, of course, I think is a Norse word for settlement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any word like Grimsby, for instance.
Yeah.
Wormby. So maybe there's a hint then that the old Vikings did have some sort of settlement in Cardiff, yeah?
Yeah, and it would make sense with the River Taff as well, because their longboats would have got up smaller channels more easily.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense to me that they would have had their little stamp. And it does say somewhere in Gwynfor Evans's book that part of the trade of the Scandinavians, he called them, was down to the fact that they made a mark in terms of Swansea and even Cardiff as well. So it seems to be a very important trade route for themselves as well.
Yeah.
But no, thank you, Bill. I think in terms of the politics, it seems to be a frustrating one.
Got a long way to go.
I've been a speaker all over South Wales. It's amazing the lack of knowledge of history that the people in the various groups, local history groups, and the various charity groups that I've been speaking to throughout South Wales, their knowledge of the local history has been very poor.
Yeah.
And they're so surprised when I talk to them at Plateau and just say what actually is over there and how it occurred and how it occurred through the ages. They're amazed, and it seems to spark a bit of interest then.
Yeah, I think we need people like Carl, Peter, me, all set up our own thing and just keep ranting about our history, and Anne can join us. One thing I thought would be quite interesting is that, because there's a lot of things that I know about Cardiff that we haven't touched upon, that if maybe in the future we done a Cardiff walk where we walked around Cardiff and we pointed out the little areas and maybe try and have that connection ourselves. So if anyone's interested of doing a Cardiff walk.
Mhm.
Again, just like the ramblings of me and Carl, we'll set that up for you guys as well, because I think that'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Good socially as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Richard?
And there's always Cathay Cemetery as well, isn't there? They
Yeah,
did this
Cathay
walk.
Cemetery. My mum's had a spooky experience there as well, so I could add that to the mystery of it all. I haven't experienced it, but she's convinced that she brought something back from there, so God knows what she's on about.
Oh,
But yeah, I think we should, even down near Cathay Cemetery is an area where they would do hangings as well. So that
right.
just walking around, I could just point out little things, and
Yeah.
it starts to make you view Cardiff differently. So I think if
Yeah.
anyone's interested in a walk, I think message me and Carl, and I think we'll start getting that all ready.
I think good idea.
Richard, is there anything that you'd like to ask or add?
Yeah, there's a few little bits really, because it's going on about pottery and everything. But I think back in medieval times as well, a lot more stuff came into Aberthaw than actually came into Cardiff.
Yeah.
And a lot was sort of exported and imported into Aberthaw.
And I think that with that connection with St John's Church having the foundations made from of material from Aberthaw, it would make sense that there would have been a connection in that way as well. That's a really good observation there, Richard. Thank you.
Yeah.
A mental note of that for myself.
A little sort of
And
thing about St John's Church, and I can remember being when I was, small lad sort of thing, and every Christmas morning on the BBC you'd have church bells ringing. For an age, seemed to be ages on the TV or on the radio.
Yes.
And it was broadcast all over the UK, but it was the church bells from St John's.
Oh,
yeah, Cardiff in terms of St John's is amazing when the bells are ringing.
Yeah.
Gosh.
It was
Bells are ringing.
Are you from Cardiff, Richard?
No, I'm Barry. Barry, born and bred. Barry, the land of the Vikings.
Yes, a lot of Viking connection there.
We've got a few still living here, still pillaging.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you. Thanks for that.
Pat, anything that you'd like to ask or add?
No, I'm beginning to enjoy the medieval. I didn't think I would, but I'm coming around to it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Pat. Yeah, I'll see Pat and Anne next week. Bill, I'll see you tomorrow. Richard and
out as well. I think somewhere I got a photo of Greyfriars before it was demolished, or what was left of it.
Yeah, I've got a photo of Whitefriars before it was demolished. But there's always talk about how Marquis of Bute had excavated there and found artifacts, but trying to find out what they were, it's a nightmare to get hold of.
Yeah, there's another thing be sort of worth looking, because I've looked, on archaeological Cambrensis.
Yes.
And quite often, if you delve into it, you can find, because I've seen a few, where this sort of antiquarians would travel all around the country.
Yeah.
And I know you can get one where they've travelled to Castle Core when it was a ruin before the Butes ever got hold of it. So possibly on there's other reports where these antiquarians have gone to Cardiff Castle when all that remained was still the Norman remains, not the before the
Victorian. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I've been looking through Archaeologica Cambrensis myself, but my focus at the moment, I've been quite tunnel visioned with it. I'm looking at trades in South Wales and trying to pick out areas, but that would be quite interesting, Richard, to actually look in terms of that. Yeah. So thank you for that. I'm no longer tunnel visioned with it. I've got a new focus with it as well. Yeah. No, thank you. Anne, was you going to say something then as well?
I forgot now. It was about the fairy tale tower, on the castle, and you said it was 16th century. That wall along there was 16th century.
Well, the tower, there was the Beauchamp tower?
Yeah.
15th century.
Oh gosh, I thought it was Victorian.
You know, I did as well, but that one particular tower, it did have a little bit of reconstruction by Bute, but
Yeah.
Majority of it is 15th century, which is amazing because it just blends in with the castle and just sort of. But they would have thrown stones out of it. You can just imagine, can't you?
It'd be worth having a look at my guide again.
I think I might go there with a slingshot and just throw it at people. If I see anyone from Cadw. Just throw it at them. Thank you, everyone. Like I said, if you're interested in me and Carl's ramblings together one evening, or even a Cardiff walk soon, just message us and we'll set that all up for you. Okay. So take care. I'll see some of you tomorrow, and I'll see some of you next week. So take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nosta.
Oh, Jess, what did you do last week when I was away?
Pardon?
What was your lesson last week?
It was changing the perceptions of the Anglo-Saxons.
Oh.
It's
a bit gory.
Yeah, it was. I think there is a recording online of it. So if you want, I can get hold of it and send it to you.
What was the one the week before then?
Oh gosh. My mind's gone completely blank. What was the week before, Anne?
Oh.
My book is upstairs, so I don't know what it was. Right. My mind.
Wait. It's just that I haven't looked up what I missed when I was on holiday. When I went away. I guess it was 2 weeks ago. I can't remember.
What I'll do, I'll have a look, and because my book's upstairs. Actually, stay there. I'll go and get my book.
Okay. Stay there.
Oh, there was one about the birthing girdle.
Remember the birthing one? Yeah, that was last week. Yeah.
I saw that one.
Yeah, I saw the birthing one and
then
the perception of the Anglo-Saxons. Yeah.
Yeah, she did about the Anglo-Saxons. Oh, it was the Vikings, I think. Yeah, she did a Viking cemetery. Or Viking, all those Vikings that were killed.
2 weeks ago, we looked at Turkey and a number of sites in Turkey.
Yeah, oh, right. So
yeah.
I have to look up.
Yeah, and there's video online of that as well. And then the week after was the bloodthirsty Anglo-Saxons.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, I saw that one. So it's the
that's cool. Pat, I'll try and get it over to you, the recording as well.
Yeah, the Turkey one would be good. I always wanted to go to Turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
See you, bye. And thank you to everyone on YouTube for watching. Follow Carl for more videos.
Yeah, that was very good.
Thank you, Carl.
You had Ellen joined you as well, and
yeah, that was amazing to have Ellen.
Yeah, and you had you had 4 people watching at one point, and it's been ranging between 3 and 4. So that's good.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Carl.
So
and thank you to everyone who watched.
Yes, you've still got 3 people watching now, so there you go. And Anne's got her old Archaeology Cymru top on, which is a bit weird.
Yeah, she always sports Archaeology Cymru, bless her.
But she won't be there tomorrow. Nor will who else? Not going? Oh my God!
So it'll just be me and the boys tomorrow, I think.
Oh God, that's going to be fun. Rob, Bill, Del. Is that it?
Rob. Yeah, I think that's it for tomorrow.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Don't upset Del too much.
We have little chats before the lesson starts anyway, because he's always early and I am. So we get a drink and have a natter. Did you
get him to buy you a drink?
No. He has offered, but I always say it's fine. It's only 90p.
Oh God, 90p is 90p. Yeah, definitely. So, okay. All right then. Well, I'll leave you be. Tomorrow. Right, what I'll do, I'll take this off record now. So anyway, so you said thank you to everybody. So we'll take this away out of YouTube, and I think it's minutes behind on YouTube.